and we could hear my dad walking up the step, and we knew he was coming to tell us to get up because we had to shovel the snow out the driveway, and we had to get his car cleaned up so he could go to work. He wasn't going to miss work. And the tough thing about it, while my brother and I were out there shoveling the driveway, and my dad standing on the porch with his cup of coffee, he would holler out to us and he would say, "Hey, Mr. Peonato, he's got to go to work today. And Mr. Pastula, he's got to go to work today. And Mr. Hood has got to go to work today." So my brother and I ended up shoveling snow for about 5 families, on those snow mornings, so they could all prepare to go to work that day.
Oh wow! Oh, so you became a servant at an early age at your dad's,
without question. But this guy, not knowing the valuable lessons he was teaching me at an early age, and I love him and miss him to this day, for all the things that he did to help create who I became to be. Not saying that I turned out to be the greatest, but anything that I've done good in my life, I attribute it to him first.
Amen, right? Yeah, our fathers have such an influence in our lives. And I'll tell you one of the things that I've noticed, Sergeant Major, is there are many young men that were in our Army that were missing father figures. And I'll tell you, you filled that gap for a lot of people. It is without a doubt. You definitely did. So I got to take the time. I got to say this, right? There is almost not a single air defender that I have not had an interview with that has not said, "Say hi to Sergeant Major Adams for me," right? You are mentioned in almost every interview with almost every air defender that I have done. I have nicknamed you the Godfather of the modern air defense branch. Now,
oh my goodness,
you and in a good way. I'm going to tell you, Sergeant Major, look, I found myself personally, I know me, in your office at least 4 times asking you for advice, right? I resigned from the branch. I asked you to go be a jump master instructor. You dealt with me getting told by the division command sergeant major that he didn't need my services anymore as a NCO of the year. Do you remember that? That
right,
was,
I remember.
Yeah, right. And then later on, you just took the whole branch and just made us so cohesive. You had a way of doing that. You had a way of creating an atmosphere around our battalion, 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, such that no modern air defender is allowed to say 3/4 ADA. You realize you did that, right? There is a group of people, Sergeant Major, that are pre-you, they're pre the early 90s, that say, "Yeah, we've always been 3/4 ADA. What's the big deal? 3/4 ADA, 3/4 ADA." But there's certain ones of us that will lose our minds when we hear it. We're like, we ain't 3/4 and nothing. We weren't ready to fight somebody, right? And
right,
but that's
right.
you. That was you, Sergeant Major. And so the legacy that you leave is, oh my gosh. It's just amazing. Tell me a story on the block. Tell me about little kid Wilbur Adams. What's V stand for, by the way? Can I ask? Did I lose you?
Did we move audio?
Oh yeah, okay. So I got you. I guess we lost something just for a second, but we're back. Okay. So tell me, what does V stand for? Wilbur V. Adams.
I'm named after my father, who was Wilbur Vernon Adams Sr. So I proudly hold a junior in his honor.
Yay! Me too. I'm a junior. Yay! That's great. That's great. Wilbur Vernon Adams Jr. I love it, Sergeant Major. So tell me a story when you were a kid. Did you get in trouble? Were you a bully? Were you quiet? Were you a studious kid?
I I was never a bully. My mom and my dad would not allow that in any way. I was a middle of the road student. B's and C's came easy. If I applied myself, in a class that piqued my interest, I could squeeze out an A. But I was a good student. I was, all of the teachers and the faculty, they liked me because I played all of the sports. So I was held in high regard in elementary, junior high, and high school.
Oh wow! Oh wow! So, did you play sports and stuff in high school?
I did. I was the captain of the baseball team, and I was a pretty good first baseman. Learned that from my dad, and pretty good hitter, decent, probably better than average fielder, and I just enjoyed playing baseball my entire youth.
Oh, that's great. So you were a first baseman, man. That's Mr. Reliable right there. There's nobody more reliable than a first baseman.
That is for sure. That is for sure.
Gotta secure that ball and get that out. That is awesome. That is great. Great. Did you have visions of being a pro ball player or anything like that?
I did. I did. I played and was offered a couple scholarships to play baseball in college, and I also was invited to a camp. This was after I finished high school, and the Tigers was holding a camp up in Albion College in Albion, Michigan, and it was some big name guys, from my era. A guy named Frank Tanana, a guy named Ted Simmons, a guy named John Mayberry, who all played during the same time I was playing high school baseball. And all of these guys ended up making it to the pros. And I was wondering, I'm saying, why in the heck am I up here with these guys? I mean, they were on the fast track to the majors, and, I was just a decent, high school first baseman. And so I ended up staying up there the first week, and my highlight during that week was getting a base hit off of Frank Tanana. And I remember when he played for the California Angels, every time he pitched, I would tell my kids, man, I got a hit off of that guy, And so it was a tremendous honor to get up there and play with those guys and have an opportunity to share that experience with my kids.
Oh, that's so great, right? That is so awesome. What was it about baseball that you liked so much?
My dad. It goes back to my dad who grew up playing baseball. There in Haddock, Georgia, and he loved the game, and the energy that I got from him sharing, things he did, in the sandlots in Georgia, and then coming to Detroit and following the Cleveland Indians, and he followed the Cleveland Indians because Larry Doby, who was the first African-American baseball player to play in the American League. We all know Jackie Robinson played, he was the first, and he played for the Dodgers in the National League. And so when Larry Doby was signed to play for the Cleveland Indians in the American League, my dad latched hold of that, and he and I and my brother became Cleveland Indians fans for life.
Yay! That's awesome.
And when I played middle school and high school baseball, quite naturally, I wore Larry Doby's number.
What was that number?
Number 14.
1-4. That is awesome. That is awesome. Any idea why he chose that number?
I have no idea how Larry Doby came to wear number 14.
Oh wow. So what was it like? Like did you spend a lot of time after high school or whatever before you joined the Army, or did you go in right away, or how did joining the Army come around?
My dad just was focused on work, and it started with me, and it went down the path with my brother and both sisters. We graduated from high school, and there was an application on the kitchen table to work for Chevrolet Gear and Axle, after high school. And so I told my mom, I said, Mom, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that. And she said, well, you know your father, and that's the only thing, he's going to expect of you is to either, play ball or come and work in the factories. And so what had happened, and this was just divine intervention, my best friend, who lived a few streets over, his older brother was in the Army. And I remember when Robert came home from leave one summer, and I was sitting there, and he walked in his living room in his Class A's and those spit shine jump boots and that maroon beret, and I said, that's what I want to do right there. That is what I want to do. And so, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to join the military, and I'm going to be a paratrooper. And I never had the opportunity to look my dad in the eye and tell him that. And I regret that to this day, but I just had, so much respect for him and, what he thought was the best life for me. So what I ended up doing was going to Georgia and spend the summer with one of his brothers, and I ended up enlisting at that time.
Oh, I love it. So you, what happened that you didn't get to share that kind of stuff with your dad?
Because my dad's vision was one way, and he was hard-lined, and then he did not believe that that the military was the way to go for any young African American male at the time.
Really?
And it took me going in and him learning from me, how things were, for him to become comfortable with that.
So, I mean, that's just kind of obvious, right? That your dad maybe brought some Georgia ghosts, with him, right?
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our those times in our culture are sad in a lot of ways, but they're victorious in a lot of ways too. And it's obvious that your father made his family into a success and bred success in you and your brothers and sisters, and has to be proud of that, right?
Oh, for sure. And as we were equally as proud of him, I used to hear stories like, just like in the Army, how we have organization day, once a year, and in the factories, every year they would have a family day, and so the families were able to go up to the manufacturing plants, and we would walk around, and we could see what our dads were doing on the job, and I would hear stories about him from his supervisors, and they would say, did you know your dad uh, is the only non-degree engineer that we have in this factory? They would say, he learned these machines so well that he was on par with, the actual engineers that, actually went through the training to, operate and to, make sure that all of this, high value equipment was functional each day. And I look back and I'm saying, here this guy is, I think he might have made it to the 8th grade, and he's being looked at and compared to, guys who had graduated from engineering school and colleges. So I was so proud of that, and I did not have the intestinal fortitude to tell my dad that wasn't what I want, for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to stand up to that authority, right?
Oh my goodness! And it was just out of respect for him, to know what things that he did, for our family, and the sacrifice that he made, him and my mom made for each of us, and to tell him, I just don't want that for myself, was difficult for me.
Right, right. I bet. I bet. So what was I just can't imagine Private Adams. Come on, come on. I just can't imagine Private Adams. What was that
Oh my
like?
goodness, Private Adams, man, that dude really enjoyed being a soldier.
I bet.
I mean, he really enjoyed being a soldier. I was a first team papa, and I went through basic training at Fort Knox. Then I went to 16 Papa School at Bliss, and at the time, 16 Papas were chaparral or red eye. And so my first duty station after AIT was Fort Benning, Georgia. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to airborne school, then I'm going to be stationed at Fort Benning, which was fine with me, with my dad's family, just being 2 hours away from Columbus, Georgia. So that worked out fine. And so what happened was I got to replace the 97th Infantry Brigade, who was school support for the infantry school. And so I'm up there, and I'm, private, might have been in E2, hadn't made PFC yet. and I'm trying to figure out, how come I didn't go to jump school? And so uh, they put me to work, and at the time there was no air defense battalions. They had, all of the red eye guys as support to infantry and field artillery battalion. And so I'm scared. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I remember being in the dining facility in second of the 10th Field Artillery, and I was talking with a guy, and I'm saying, don't look like I'm going to get to go to jump school. And he says, you need to go see, and he called this guy, and I'll never forget, you need to go see Sergeant McKinney. And here I'm thinking, okay, I got, platoon sergeants and squad and section sergeants and squad leaders and first sergeant, and I knew there was a sergeant major somewhere, but I found it strange that he said I need to go see Sergeant McKinney, which was probably the best choice for me because, James McKinney, I don't know if you remember him, he ended up, being the TRADOC command sergeant major. His brother ended up being, sergeant major of the Army. And I went to him in a dining facility, scared to death because this guy, as a young Sergeant E5, was revered like he was a CSM, and I don't think he had 3 years in the Army at the time.
Wow.
And so I went to him and I said, Sergeant McKinney, I'm Private Adams, and I was told to come to you that you would help me with my issue. And I sat down and explained to him that I got shipped from replacement, straight to my unit without, going to jump school. So he took all my information down. I say within 48 hours, they had my orders cut, sending me the 50th Company, United States Army Airborne School, and I was just amazed, that a non-commissioned officer could make something like that happen so quickly.
Oh wow!
So I went and joined 50th Company. Went through my 4 weeks of airborne school. And I returned to 210 Field Artillery and worked school support of the infantry school, the Ranger school, the infantry school. And I think over that 2-3 year period in support, I ended up getting like 16 jumps in.
Oh, wow.
During my time there at Fort Benning. Before I moved on to Fort Campbell from there.
What year was this? What year did you enter the Army?
I entered in February 2nd, 1973.
Oh, wow. What uniform were you wearing?
We were wearing the cotton fatigues. We had the TWs for summer wear, and we had the cotton or the wool Class A.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, let's see, 73, 83, you spent almost 10 years of your career running in boots.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, right? Looking back on it, it's like, y'all were idiots.
Great idiots. Straight up idiot. Pounding the ground in combat boots and not running shoes.
Oh yeah, amazing. That look, there was a mentality it doesn't matter. Harder is better. Harder is always better. That was the mentality back then. It was like it was all the softness came out of Vietnam like coming in 73. That's the tail end of it, right? And
my goodness.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. those Vietnam vets, those guys were no joke. They scared the hell out of us each and every day. I'm saying, man, these guys are Looney Tunes. I mean, they're straight up crazy. And I remember times when we would be standing in the chow line, and guys from Vietnam, they would do their DAP line, and nobody was going to break it. I mean, if you were standing in line to get chow, you might as well turn around and walk away, because if you tried to break through that little DAP line, I mean, you were going to get your behind handed to. So, I mean, we kind of knew that and learned to try to get to the chow hall before they start showing up.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So, I mean, look, back in 73, the doggone, the world was half segregated, and the Army was in just a crazy quagmire of all the different groups, and all just a mess of all of it. Did you find that a problem?
I found it a problem, but I also knew that there were ways around it. And believe it or not, even then, if, the chain of command saw that you were trying to, do what you were, trained to do, kept your head down and, was accountable for yourself and your equipment, you could avoid a lot of that. But trust me, a lot of that was going on, even, on that great post, like Fort Benning. And then I learned later when I got to Fort Campbell that, like you said, it was tough times, trying to get everyone to believe in, unity, and to believe in, the spirit of the Corps. It just took some time. As you remember, Vietnam was the first time units deployed as integrated units. First time in the Army's history. That happened in Vietnam. Prior to that, Korea, World War II, World War I, it was all segregated then. So here we are, for the first time in our history, we're deploying integrated units to fight a 10-year battle in Vietnam. And we know that all sorts of problems, came out of that, thank goodness that, we were able to, figure those things out and mitigate them down to the lowest level, over the next decades, during the time that you and I were serving.
Look, nobody wants the United States Armed Forces to be the element of social change. Nobody wants that, but it is a reflection of the society, and I'm proud that our Army and our armed forces has been on the forefront of integration and love and embracing and allowing folks to shine, where they show up at, and bloom where they grow. And I tell you, I say we because I was part of it, just like you were. Build a great integrated Army. And we're still doing it, right?
Absolutely, we are.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, Sergeant Major. I know I set it up at the beginning, but I'm gonna say it again right here. You did a great job of unifying a unit. 3rd of the 4th ADA became 3rd of the 4th from 3/4 ADA. And I don't want to just jump to that, but I'm going to tell you, Sergeant Major, you had just a great influence on so many people. What was it like becoming a sergeant? Tell me about that.
Oh my goodness! When I pinned on sergeant, the first backlash that happened with me was I was one of the few guys that when I was promoted to sergeant, I didn't go anywhere. You know, there was no other battery where a 16 Papa could go, so I had to stay, you know, where I was. And my peer group, you know, the E4s, the specialists, and the PFCs, you know, that I was hanging out with and partying with and going on road trips with, you know, on the weekends, you know, that's the first thing they came to me with is don't bring none of that sergeant shit here. And so, you know, that made it tough on me until, you know, I was put into a situation that where, you know, either I was going to be a success at being a sergeant or I was going to fail miserably. And then, you know, like I said, one of the guys that helped me through all of that was James McKinney, because he had, at the time, he had become a staff sergeant. And for some reason, you know, he took me under his wings and he saw what I was going through, and he helped me a lot through the leader development and, you know, saying, you know, it's not, you can't just walk out your room tomorrow being a sergeant. I mean, it's, you have to show those qualities. You can't tell anybody. You have to show those qualities. You have to develop that leadership acumen. You have to, you know, when it's time for us to do vehicle inspections, when it's time for us to prepare for IG inspections, you have to be able to show a subordinate how to prepare. You have to be able to show them how to display, you know, their equipment and be accountable for their equipment and how to lay out, you know, your pioneer tools and your specialty tools in the motor pool, you know, in front of your, you know, your vehicles, whether it be a Jeep or a prime mover or what, and teach them what PMCS is all about and why PMCS is important, even though that vehicle is not ours, it belongs to the Army, but while we're signed for it, we're responsible for maintaining the vehicle, because when we roll out the gate, you know, how that vehicle performs, you know, under some very tough conditions is going to be based a lot on how well we maintain it. So he helped me understand that. And then my old peers, they saw that change. You know, it wasn't where I had to grab my collar and say, you know, I'm a sergeant now. They saw that development and they saw that leadership, you know, as I grew into it, you know, going through the first phase, I'm doing everything because I'm scared. You know, I'm scared because I don't want to get, you know, on my platoon sergeant's bad side. I don't want to get on the first sergeant's bad side. So I'm doing everything out of fear. And then after I got through that, I got to a point that where I internalized leadership. I accepted that as being who I was. So, you know, I didn't need James McKinney as an example anymore. You know, I didn't have to be afraid of the first sergeant or the sergeant major or the commander anymore, because those attributes of being a leader, man, those are mine now. those were mine now. And so whatever the standard was for me, that standard was going to be for my soldiers, and it would became an example for them by example. Where we learn Army regulations, we learn those things together, and then I learned early on, there's a performance gap. With all soldiers, I don't care if it's a team, a squad, a platoon, a company, a battalion, there are performance gaps. If you have a bunch of section sergeants, if you have a bunch of platoon sergeants, you have first sergeant, there are performance gaps with all of those guys. And you, as the leader, you have to figure out a way to show your top performers that you believed in them and that you knew that a style of leadership that would be beneficial to them, you would provide. But you also had to go to those guys on the bottom end of the spectrum, whether they were unable or unwilling, you had to apply a different style of leadership for them, because they were just as important to your unit or your team or your organizational success as your best frontline performer. So all of that types of leadership, styles of leadership became very, very important to me at an early age, and I knew that from the first guy to the 100th guy, in your battery, or the first guy to the 20th guy in your platoon, you had to find a leadership style that was going to optimize every skill within that platoon or battery in order to be a success.
What made you think like that, Sergeant Major? Come on now. Most young sergeants are not thinking like that. What was it that gave you that insight? How did you think at that level, if you don't mind my asking?
I go back to James McKinney, and he pushed me toward, Soldier of the Month boards and Driver of the Month boards, and sponsored me going to different, leadership school. I mean, he sponsored me, going to, to BNOC or I can't remember what it was back. I think it was just the NCO Academy. I don't think we had developed, a PLC or BNOC then. It was just an NCO Academy. And so he pushed me to enhance and develop my leadership and get me to understand, thinking forward and organizational success is based on every element within your authority. And so that's why I said I was very, very blessed early on, to have guys like James McKinney in my life, and he kicked our butts. And even though I wasn't in his FDC section, he just took control over a lot of the minority soldiers, and he would not let us stray, from our duties and responsibilities, within that organization. And I'll share another story with you. He was chewing me out about something in the motor pool, And so he got me locked up, and he's going up and down for something I did wrong. And I happened to look up, and I saw this guy approaching. And when he got up to us, I turned and I looked at him, and I'm saying, at the time I didn't know that Sergeant McKinney had a twin brother. And I said to myself, oh my God, it's two of them. And I laugh and talk, and he and I are good friends to this day. He lives down close to I forgot what little town in Florida he lives in. But he and I, we speak on the phone, about once a month, and as far as helping me understand potential and leadership, he laid that foundation for me. He really did.
That is absolutely amazing, Sergeant Major. It is absolutely amazing that direct mentorship at that level by somebody that is that outstanding, obviously, and his brother that is that outstanding. It's amazing how cool that is. And we saw that happen in 3rd of the 4th, day after day, moment after moment, right? We had such amazing NCOs in that battalion.
Let me tell you something. You guys were more than amazing. I could not believe, when I showed up, the quality of non-commissioned officers that was in 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment. I'm saying, how in the world did the Army find a way to put the best non-commissioned officers in the Army, in one place? And I was just in awe of you guys, top to bottom, from day one of my assignment. And I would share with you that almost didn't happen. When I got to Fort Bragg after the Sergeant's Major Academy, I was being assigned to 252, the Hawk Battalion up the street. And I went to Sergeant Major Miranda. I said, Sergeant Major Miranda, is there any way, you could help me, get out of my assignment to 252 and come up here to 3-4. And then, but like I know, it's hard to get into the 82nd Airborne Division. I mean, it is truly, truly hard because they only want the best, and there's so much nepotism to where, if you got to know someone and have worked with them many, many, many times over, to secure, a position or line number, in that division. But thankfully for me that in my previous assignment with 25th Division, Sergeant Major Miranda was my first sergeant in Alpha Battery 162. And then prior to that, we worked together as drill sergeants. I was, in the dirt guy, and he was like the drill sergeant of the year. So he floated around the division area, as being the drill sergeant of the year. And then again, I got a chance to be a platoon sergeant for him in Hawaii. And so when I went to him there at Fort Bragg and asked him to intercede on my behalf, he did. And my orders was changed, and I got a chance to come up to be a member of 3488.
I had no idea. So you had been in in the battalion previously, though. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, but that was back in like the old division days we when we had no idea that there was an air defense artillery command sergeant major, because I think the battalion only got infantry CSMs to, serve, in the battalion, even back when it was 7th of the 60th before it was redesignated 3488.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. We did have a time in the modern battalion area where we had I think an MP sergeant major for a very brief time, very brief time. Tell me.
If you think about it, Cuddy and all those guys, they were not air defense artillery. I think Steve Miranda was the first air defense artillery sergeant major that the battalion ever had.
Oh, really? So yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. Harvey wasn't an 88 guy?
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's cool. So, like, what are your memories? Did you ever get lost or turn the shap over, or anything crazy like that as a squad leader, or have to wrangle a soldier around or something?
Yes, we were in Korea, and we were going up to our. We had this mission called Casey Hobie mission, and every week a chat platoon would go out to a designated spot, and we would function, as a forward operating air defense element, but protecting from airstrikes over from the DMZ. And so I remember our shop on this very narrow road, and the driver got too close to the edge, and we started sliding off the side of the hill. And I'm thinking, we are getting ready to tip over. We're getting ready to tip over. And we just so happened to get a hold of our maintenance sergeant, and he drove. I think we had to be on that hill. I would have said 3 or 4 hours, but it ended up being less than an hour. And so he came up with his recovery vehicle and connected the chains to, the strong points on the shaft, and he was able to pull us back to where we had the tracks back on the road, and that we can continue on, with our mission. But trust me, everything, my life went before my eyes as soon as I saw that chaparral was getting ready to tip over and roll down the side of that hill. I knew it would have been over for me. But
where were you sitting? Where were you sitting?
Say again?
Where were you sitting in the chap?
Yeah, I was inside
the turret.
I was inside the troop compartment, and the driver was saying, "Oh man, we're in trouble." And then you could feel the track sliding to the left, and so we put it on brakes. We got out, and we lightened the load on the right hand side, on the left hand side of the shaft, so that the preponderance of the weight would still be on the right hand side, and it held on until the wrecker got up there and pulled us to safety.
Oh my gosh. We had happy times and we had sad times in the Army. Do you remember a time where maybe you reminisce or look back over a soldier that we lost? I think of lots of memorial services that I went to and unfortunately had to officiate a couple times. Do you remember a time?
I will I do, and it's something that will stay with me for the rest of my life, even though the situation, this particular situation, didn't happen in our battalion, and I can tell you about the ended up, dying on the drop zone. But this particular case, it was during the event out at Pope Airfield. When we had that massive crash out there, and we had soldiers from the '04 and the '05 there on the tarmac. And I went to one of the memorial services with Command Sergeant Major Steve Cuffey from the 3rd Brigade. And there was this young specialist Wingfield, a little black E4, and she was telling the story about, sitting there on the grass there in front of the tarmac at Green Ramp when the explosion occurred. And she said she was frozen. She didn't know what to do. And the sergeant grabbed her by her LCE and said, "Run." And he grabbed her and he pushed her. And she said she was running. And she said they all felt that heat, that ball of fire coming their way. And she said the sergeant threw her to the ground, laid on top of her, and said, "Don't worry, I got you." And so I'm listening at this young specialist there in the chapel tell this story about this young sergeant who she didn't know, and how he cared enough about her to push her forward, throw her down on the ground, lay down on top of her, and after the fireball flew over the top of them, he told her to get up and to continue running. And she said she ran about 50 yards and turned around to look through where he was, and he wasn't there. And to come to find out later that Sergeant Price perished from the injuries that he sustained, from that fireball going over the top, and that is what makes me feel so proud of my time, in the division. To hear this young white sergeant, he could care less that this kid was a little black female soldier. His instincts and his leadership said, "I'm going to make sure that she's okay," and he gave his life to ensure that happened. And that act of heroism, it still gives me goosebumps to this day to know that we had non-commissioned officers of that stature willing to do whatever it took, to take care of one of his soldiers or a soldier that he didn't even know.
Do you remember being a drill sergeant and having to take care of somebody that couldn't even take care of themselves?
Oh my goodness, yes. It was one of the toughest challenges that you could have as a non-commissioned officer, bringing in 200 to 300 raw recruits from all over the country, from all walks of life. And you have 8 weeks to take them from being civilians through the soldierization process. And man, oh man, the challenges were insurmountable at times. But it's a testament to to the people who wanted better things for themselves, and it's a testament to the Army leadership, to give us the skills and the wherewithal to bring these folks together, and at least at the initial entry training time, we were able to to do fairly decent job. And one of the things I will share with you about my time as a drill sergeant, and you probably remember, the first day, what did we used to call it, field day, where the shock and awe, bringing in, 200 people into a battery, and the first thing you want to do is instill fear. And we would always grab the biggest guy in that group of trainees and dog them out pretty good to get the other trainees to say, man, if they dog this guy out, I better get my act together. And I remember this one cycle, Will, we had this guy show up. His name was Bethay, I'll never forget. And I come to find out later that his big brother was Elvin Bethay, who played professional football with the Houston Oilers at the time. And so this big kid, Bethay, 6'4", 240. And so my fellow drill sergeants, they turned to me and they said, this one's on you, big guy. And so I'm saying, so you want my time as a drill sergeant in the day, if you think I'm going to go and try to break this big kid down, so you guys could have something to have laughs about, down the road, I say, it ain't going to happen.
It ain't going to happen.
So, but I knew we had to do something. And so I grabbed a duffel bag. I threw the duffel bag at his feet. I ran up to him. I jumped up on the duffel bag. I put the bill of my campaign cap in the bridge of his nose, and I started hollering at him. I don't know what I said, and I don't know what I seen because I think my eyes were closed. But then when I opened up my eyes and saw he was shivering a little bit, I said, thank you, Lord. That we were able to get that part of the shock treatment done without me getting my head snatched off my shoulders, because at any point in time, this guy, if he'd have got angry enough to to body slam me, I mean, he could have probably done it pretty easily.
Oh my gosh!
But that turned out to be, to my benefit, that we were able to, shake him up a little bit to where, he didn't retaliate.
Let's take a minute and let's watch this tribute slideshow that I've done for us. I'm not sure that the audio is going to be the greatest as I share it, but we'll figure it out. Let's see what we got here. Should be able to see that, right?
Yes.
Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. There is pride in every American's heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. There ain't no doubt I love this land. Love this land, God bless the USA. God bless the USA.
I love you, Sergeant Major. You are amazing. You are amazing. I appreciate you so much.
Outdid yourself, my friend.
Oh my gosh, it is so awesome, right? It is absolutely so awesome. It's fun to hang out together and talk about things and old memories and make memories. This is all about, leaving memories and things for our grandkids and those that care. I just can't tell you how many people that I've talked to. I've done almost 100 interviews now, and I'm gonna tell you, your name comes up in 2/3 to 3/4 of the interviews. Of course, I'm talking to air defenders, but you played a pivotal time in our branch, and you did so many good things. I mean, you went to the highest level. You really couldn't have gone much higher of a nominative position without going to, being a sergeant major of the Army and those kinds of things. As you look back and you think of becoming a command sergeant major, what was it like to take on that responsibility, to no longer be worried about, one unit, so to speak, accomplishing a mission, but worrying really about all the people?
Well, I was scared to death, to be honest with you. I remember, and you showed a picture there of the air defenders that was in my class 38 graduating class, and you saw Pascal Hilton there. You saw Nate, the original bear, and we had some bad dudes, come out of that class. And, when you're selected as a command sergeant major, and I don't care how much time you serve as a first sergeant or master sergeant, in ops or S2 or whatever, you look at that guy in the big seat in the battalion, and you wonder, what he had to do, the struggles, and the sacrifices he made to get there. And I'll go back to Steve Miranda, the day the promotion list came out for our group. And at the time, you could be selected for sergeant major, and then guys who were sergeants major could be selected to be a CSM, or you could be selected to be sergeant major and CSM. And I remember Steve and Cookie Miranda having me over for dinner one evening. This was before the list popped, and Command Sergeant Major Miranda, we had dinner, and then he shared with me and my wife at the time, Diane, that I had come out on the Command Sergeant Major list. And it knocked my socks off because, I was a secondary zone guy, I wasn't primary. And, I never looked at myself as someone that would be, Waters, all those guys who were below zone guys to CSM. And so I said, Sergeant Major, are you sure? And he said, yes, you made it. And so I asked him, I said, Sergeant Major, do you know where I'm going to go? And not knowing that he had planned on retiring. So I'm asking him, do you have any idea where I might be going? And he says, I've talked with Sergeant Major Acosta, and he said, and I told him that I would like you to backfill me. And I said, Sergeant Major, backfill you? What do you mean? He said, I'm going to retire. I said, Sergeant Major, how can you retire? You just barely made 20 years. He said, no, I'm going to retire and spend these years, with my family. And he said, Sergeant Major Costa said he supported it, but he says, but he's got to make, of course, he said, he better pass jump master school. But fortunately for me, I had already went to jump master school. Acosta didn't know this. So I was jump master qualified. So, the only thing I had to do was, help Sergeant Major, through his retirement, and then get assigned, appointed as CSM when, Jim Nix came down to our motor pool and pinned it on me. And I was in shock for, a number of days, not knowing that I deserved this opportunity. But again, the great soldiers, the great non-commissioned officers in that battalion, you guys wrapped your arms around me, and, we figured out a way to move this thing forward and onward, and everything that I achieved from that point on wasn't based on anything I'd done. It was based on what the non-commissioned officers and soldiers in that battalion did. And fortunately, the way things are, the sergeant major and the commander will receive the accolade for it, but we ain't do shit. You guys did it. You guys did it all. And I appreciate Sergeant Major Miranda advocating for me and going through some of the things that you prepared for questions. I wanted to share this with you. And you said, was there ever a time that, you became afraid or you didn't know what the outcome of something might be? And I will share this with you. We were having a battalion formation on the basketball court, and when the battalion commander turned the battalion over to me, and he and the officers went, and then we did our little NCO thing, and so we were in formation. And this captain from the armor battalion, he just started walking through our formation. And so I saw the eyes of 359 air defenders turn toward me, because we all know you don't walk through nobody's formation. It don't happen. And so I got to do what I got to do. So I go up to this captain. I said, sir, what are you doing? I said, you can't walk through my formation. He said, I can walk through anything I want. And so right before I grabbed this guy, because he had to be grabbed. Had to be. There's no way that young captain was going to walk through the formation of 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment. It wasn't going to happen. And if I was going to have to go down for that, then so be it. But Captain Underhill, the great Captain Underhill saw what was transpiring. And Captain Underhill ran before I reached to grab this guy. He grabbed him. And he said, Captain, he said, I don't know how long you've been here. He said, but the one thing I'm getting ready to tell you, you might walk through any other formation in this division area, but you're not walking through a battalion formation in this battalion.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I asked you to turn around and walk away, before, things get out of hand. He said, because if you look around, it wasn't going to happen. And so I looked at Captain Underhill and told him thank you, because as a result of me putting my hands on this young captain from the Army Battalion, it wasn't going to be good for him. And so, Captain Underhill coming in and making sure that it didn't get to anything like that. I'm forever thankful for him, for that. And then you look at this guy and he became a general officer, and so I mean he was just ahead of his time, and he really came to the aid of his old battalion command sergeant major, and kept a bad situation from getting real ugly.
So tell me, Sergeant Major, where this aversion to 3/4 ADA come from? Because it's plain as day. It comes from you.
We were at some type of ceremony. No, it was the post division 82nd Division Week ceremony. And at the time, 3/4 ADA, we kicked behind during division review, guide-on competition, color guard competition. I mean, we had a clean sweep of everything. This little small battalion, we were the toast of the town in the 82nd Airborne Division after Division Review Week. And I remember General, oh my goodness, the division commander.
Was it Steele?
General Steele, William Steele. He came up to me and he says, Sergeant Major, 3/4 ADA kicked ass during Division Review Week. I said, sir, we're not 3/4 of anything.
Oh, wow. That's where it started.
Oh, my goodness. He looked at me, and before he started chewing me out, he understood how important that was.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I guess you guys aren't 3/4 of anything. And I think what he shared down the road, and then what the folks around who heard that interaction, I think that's where that it was born at that time. Not that I'm taking credit for it.
Oh no, you did it. There's no doubt about it. Because it's cut and dry, clear as day. If you were in battalion before you say 3/4 all day long, you don't even think about it. But if you were in the battalion then or after, it is 3rd of the 4th. It is a deal. It is something. And that's you. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I'm proud of that, right? I'm proud that my command sergeant major stood up and just for our battalion and us, because we did, Sergeant Major. We ruled division. It's almost like they kicked us out because we was too good. We smoked them.
Absolutely.
We smoked them. We had Jump Masters of the Year. We had We had like every flag football team, back in even the push ball, we would go win at push ball.
Absolutely. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, I remember one push ball championship, and Captain Bodine was commander of Charlie Battery. And Charlie Battery was out there on the push ball field destroying the infantry battalion. And Captain Bodine got a wild hair in his behind. He said, I'm going out there. I said, Captain Bodine, you can't go out there. I said, when those infantry boys find out that you're an officer, I said, you're a dead man. But he went out there. And 30 minutes later, come back to the side with his PT shirt halfway ripped off, bloody nose, bloody teeth, PT shorts down to his ankles. He said, Sergeant, you're right. He said, but that was so much damn fun.
So one of the things is interesting to think about, right, is that we are retired gladiators, right? We are retired gladiators that served our nations. Now, we don't think of ourselves as wearing the masks and the armor and stuff, but we did. We wore the helmets. We were modern day gladiators. And let me tell you something, throttling us back during those days, remember, those were the years that it was like, you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't, it was drinking and driving was a big deal. Alcohol at every function. We had a strip bar at the corner. It was crazy times, right?
It was. It really was. But what stood to the forefront for us is whenever we went down to Pike Field and received 100% no deficiencies noted every time we took our battalion down there. That meant something.
Oh, yeah.
That meant something.
Oh, yeah.
Every time we did an airborne operation, from A to Z, top to bottom, top quality, that meant something in the 82nd Airborne Division. Absolutely. And so, our reputation wasn't given to us. I mean, whenever the brigade CSMs came down to the battalion and did a battalion CI on our battalion, they were amazed at the quality of soldiers that they were inspecting and were evaluating, for the commander of the division. And so, I mean, you guys did that. You built that reputation.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you did.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've said it many, many times that 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment was handed the best officers. We were given just blooming flowers of officers, but we grew our own NCOs. Our own NCOs chose to come back there time and time again. You'd take a victory lap to Korea and come right back.
Absolutely. I totally concur with everything you just said.
Yeah. Call off some names. Tell me some of the personalities that were around the battalion back in the day that you can remember when you came around. Of course, we've talked about Miranda. My gosh, what an awesome guy he was, right?
Right. And then when you look at top down, you think about like the great Louis Lim. You think about Pascal Hilton. You think about Steve Rogers. You think about Gil. You think about oh my goodness, Segredo.
Oh yeah, Bradley. Oh.
Bradley.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, Sean
Lear.
First Sergeant.
Sean Lear. Chavez.
Oh my goodness. The personalities and who was the guy that went on that mission and he was first sergeant in Bravo Battery.
I'm sorry, you broke up. I missed it. Say again.
The guy who was part of the 2 stingers that was getting ready to go into Desert One, into Iran.
Oh, Bobenmeyer.
No, not Bobenmeyer.
No?
He ended up being first sergeant in Bravo Battery. He flies the little ultralight airplanes.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta think about that. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh my goodness. You gotta know.
I probably do. I'm just drawing a blank. Yeah.
And I'm disappointed that I forgot his name.
Oh, so many great times. You know, we told this story before, but remember we were getting off the aircraft in Haiti, and back from going to Haiti, and we're helping these guys offload. You and I are helping them, and all of a sudden this grenade comes rolling down the ramp, and we just both looking at it, right? Remember that?
Marshall, let me tell you something. You talking about pucker fact. And you and I had this discussion. You know, when the tailgate came down and this unsheathed hand grenade is rolling off the ramp, and you and I look at each other, and then we look to see if the pin was still in there. I mean, by the time that we did that, I mean, it should have been show over anyway. But we saw the pin was in there, and then the little major that came off the tailgate scared to death because it fell off of his LCE, and so we picked it up and we gave it back to him. And you and I had this conversation, and we said that, you know, with the atmosphere that came within the Army ranks later on, where, you know, it could have been very easily a soldier on that aircraft saying, you know, I'm going to end it all right here for a lot of people. And you and I thought about that, and we had that discussion, and fortunately, you know, for us, the guy just lost control, of a hand grenade, but that was something. That was really, really something to go on that flight to almost, and then come back and to have that terminate that that operation was quite something.
They say there's no atheist in foxholes. Tell us a little bit about your spirituality. You know, I know my spirituality when the lightning and stuff was going on that C-130 when we're flying through the air and it's about to knock us out of the sky. I know I was praying.
Oh my goodness, praying and for me, that was routine. My spirituality is everything for me. There's nothing that I've ever done in my life. There's nothing that I've achieved, whether it's in civilian world or in the military, that wasn't because of the grace and mercy of my Lord Jesus Christ. Nothing I did would have happened, without His, grace and mercy. And every time we roughed up and got shooted up and got JMPI, that prayer went into effect. Praying for, the pilots, the maintenance guys, all of the, airborne team, jump masters, the AJs, the safeties, load masters, even Pete Cuevas, when he was down as a ground liaison, lying about it's only 5 knots and it was blowing 25. That prayer went out. And once I put it in the Lord's hands, I mean, I was good. I didn't think about it anymore. But I had to make sure that, I gave, all the glory to Him, that we were able to do, those grandiose things at the level that we did them, on day in and day out. I mean, there's no way we could have been as successful as we were without the Lord looking over.
Amen. Amen. I remember days that I was on an aircraft and I wouldn't have cared what the winds were. It could have been a hurricane out. I wanted to jump just so I could get to the ground and pee. That's all I wanted to do was just pee.
Yeah, there you go. Now I got a question for you.
Okay.
I got a question for you. And, you being a black hat extraordinaire, how difficult was it for you to have all these great paratroopers come down, all these great leaders come down to advanced airborne school and go through that very intense, mentally tough training to become a jump master, and the time you had to look someone in the eye and say you didn't make it? I mean, how tough was that for you?
Oh my gosh, Terry Rayner tells me about me giving him a no-go at Jumpmaster School, right? About him earning a no-go in front of me, right? Terry Rayner. And he was like when I came in as a private, he was a specialist for like 3 weeks, and then he got promoted to sergeant, right? So I watched him, as a specialist, then he became my sergeant. And so later, many years later, he's, I think, a sergeant first class or a staff sergeant, and I'm a sergeant down at Advanced Airborne School. And I tell you what, Sergeant Major, what's the neat thing about the Advanced Airborne School? Unlike almost any other place I was ever at, when we walked through the door there, every instructor had the same mantra: the standard is the standard. Whatever the standard is, we follow that, and we go from there. And so you knew if somebody was on the street and they had a jump master diploma from the Advanced Airborne School, that they had met the standard. And I'd be danged if I was going to put somebody on the street that hadn't met the standard. And so it was just that simple. But there were times where I had to make tough decisions. Look, Colonel Wood, I'll never forget, okay? I will never forget when Dan Bennett calls me into the office and says, hey, your boss is coming to Jumpmaster School, and I know you're the deputy committee chief, but guess what? You're the first stick leader this class because you're going to make sure your boss gets through Jumpmaster School, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, Dan, absolutely. I'm going to make sure my boss gets through Jumpmaster School. And so I was the first stick leader for Colonel Wood when he came through. And talk about pins and needles, right? When I sent him off to be graded, I wasn't going to grade him, but I sent him off to be graded. That's my boss, man. That's my boss. You got to get there. He's already a sitting battalion commander. There's no way that I can allow him to fail. I was working night, weekends, anything it took. Well, it turns out he didn't need it. He was good, but he just didn't get in a hurry about nothing, never did. But when it was time to perform, boy, he performed, and he got to go, and I was watching from around the Connex, I promise. Oh yeah. So look, being a jump master instructor was one of the most rewarding times in my career, right? It really was. There was a lot of prestige and power and fun and experience. I got to write. I basically wrote an Army manual. I taught 80 of the best students that the division could bring to me every 3 weeks, right? You didn't go to Jump Master School as a yo-yo. You weren't somebody that just hanging around. We had... there's so many there's several generals that I'm in touch with now. Trevor Breedenkamp, one that was a student of mine, right? He was a captain, and now he's a 2-star general, and it's really neat seeing all those people come through, and it was just and kind of to get away from the airborne stuff, but the air defense community, isn't it amazing how small we were, how small of a community we were?
Yes, it was amazing how small the air defense artillery community was compared to everyone else. But it did not take away from the quality that we developed in our branch. I can look around, in our battalion. I mean, you look at the guys who are doing great and wonderful things right now. I mean, the guy you had down in Charlie Battery, Bruce Tyler, who went on to become a lawyer, and now he owns a bourbon distillery outside of the battalion. I tell you, one of my best friends, a guy named Terry Thurman. He was a 10th Mountain guy, and he and I were in the 25th together with Miranda. And this guy, post retirement, I mean, he was like the city manager in Rogers, Arkansas. I mean, the city manager. And he answered to the mayor. And the mayor at the time was a guy named Womack, who went on to be, and still is a sitting congressman. And so Terry, I was TDY at Fort Leonard Wood. I can't remember what the event was, but this guy, I mean, so talented. I mean, he and his wife and their 2 boys they could have been the poster family for the Army. I mean, they were just a great Army family. And this kid, he had it rough in the beginning because he was like one of the guys who made like E7 with just a little over 7 years in the Army. And so, I mean, he had, a lot of haters, because he was so successful so early in his career. But he and I became good friends to this day. His son does stuff with VA and has been tremendous help to me, with my disability claims. I mean, just a great Army family. His wife, Pam, who's a little ill right now, just a wonderful, wonderful Army wife and mother. And so this guy, I'm at Fort Leonard Wood, and he says, "Hey man, why don't you come spend the weekend with me and Pam here in Arkansas?" I said, "Terry, that's quite a long drive, man. I don't know if I can get out of this training on Friday and get to Arkansas in enough time to enjoy hanging out with you guys." He said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "I'll come pick you up." I said, "No, Terry, there is no way I'm going to have you drive this far." He said, "I'm not driving. He said, I'm flying my airplane."
There you go.
Dude, this guy, this retired Army First Sergeant, flies into the airfield at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, with his Cessna aircraft, picks me up and takes me back to Arkansas with him, and then Sunday flies me back to Fort Leonard Wood.
Dude, I need friends like that.
Man, and I'm telling you, when you look across, the Army, I mean, when you look across our battalion, we have so many guys that have done so many great things. We have the guy that just recently retired. Graduated from, when he was commissioned. I mean, you look at Tom Williams, you know, the talented stuff that he has done. I mean, this guy, like you, guitars. He has an arms room in his basement that would, you know, make Remington and Winchester blush. I mean, this guy, you know, he's a world-class skeet and trap shooter. He still plays tennis, you know, every day, and then he can play that guitar just like you. It is amazing. You got Russ Bodine, who is one of the top guys there in the Pentagon. I mean, we, out of our battalion, out of Air Defense Artillery, you know, you look around, and we were blessed with some talent that's out of this world. We really were.
Oh, totally. Crazy, amazing talent. What the thought again is that more and more just the understanding that we were straight up gladiators. We had guys that were willing to strap a missile on that was as big or bigger than they were, and to belly up to the door of an airplane and jump out, didn't know where.
Right. 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, don't know where the ground is.
Yeah.
But those front 8 guys with those SMJPs, they were going out the door.
Hey, so one of the neat things also about the SMJP, right? Check this out. 5 foot 8 inches in height or taller. I seen guys like get on their tippy toes because they wanted to jump that Stinger missile, right? But I also saw people shrink because they didn't want to jump that missile, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah, I've seen both of it. It go both ways, right? I had soldiers that be like, hey, squad leader, I don't want to jump that Stinger. I got no desire to jump a Stinger. I barely want to jump out of the airplane anyway. And look, we all got it, right? We figure it out. We employ our unit in accordance with its capabilities. So we let the folks that want to jump the Stinger jump it. Because, look, there's some of them out there. They want to jump that Stinger. They're like, give it to me, Sarge. Give it to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I think General Gavin says, show me a man that'll jump. I'll show you a man that'll fight. The soldiers in 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, I dare you to pick a fight with us when we're doing what we're doing, right? You will not win. We will smack down. Remember
you let an infantry battalion cross the center line on our den. You let them cross the center line. Guess what? They got a fight on their hands, buddy. You better believe that.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, 900 against 300.
Oh,
that 300 was going to show who they were.
So I remember Flag and a couple of the other guys that used to talk about having riding the line, right? If you were running down Ardennes back in them days, if you cross that yellow line, you're going to get a shoulder from the other guy.
Oh, for sure.
And the other thing, if you were on the other line and you were like going off or whatever, I mean, they would knock you into your own formation, and it was almost like battle. And
right. And you were right. Flag was one of the enforcers.
Oh, so
somebody to cross the center line.
Yeah. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Flag was being. I mean, he wanted it. He wanted a fight, buddy.
I tell you, he made the runs just to make sure that the other units stayed where they're supposed to stay on the other side of that line. That's for sure.
There was a group of NCOs and so folks. You know, we had our cadence callers, and you had folks that didn't call cadence. Right, you know, right. but boy, we always, if it was a battalion or brigade run or something, we were bringing in a group 7 home, you know, come into the quad there by replacement. Man, I never forget old Sergeant Major Bradley doing a little hard work coming around the corner, you know, leading that, man. Oh my gosh, right?
He was rocking with some hard work.
Oh yeah. I mean, just I would love to just teleport ourselves back there one weekend and just let's go through the motions again. Get out there and try to run PT and try to have a push ball game.
Oh my goodness!
Wouldn't that be funny?
What a glorious time for us, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So tell me about jumping out of airplanes. Did you like jumping?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, didn't always have the greatest experiences because I'm a pretty big guy. Sometimes if I had a door position, sometimes if I was the last guy on the stick, I would still be the first one to the ground. I remember several times Martinez and Lear would be on the ground ahead of me, and they'd look up and they'd say, "It's gonna hurt." We were in Yuma. We tested C-17.
Right.
And the only tree on the drop zone at Yuma Proving Ground, I ended up landing in top of it and fell to the ground. And Gretzky and another little soldier, they come running over to me, trying to help me up, and I got a case of the ass big time. It's like, how in the hell did I find the only tree on this 300-acre drop zone?
Oh,
and Gretzky reached down to pick me up. I said, "Gretzky, if you put your hands on me, I'm going to knock the hell out of you right now."
No way.
This is my time.
Oh, my
gosh.
God.
This is my personal time, and I'm going to suffer through it by myself.
Oh my gosh! No, so that reminds yesterday there was a football player that missed the ball or something, and he was hiding his head in shame, and the guy's like, "Get up, man!" He's like, "Leave me alone." You can tell he's like, "Leave me alone, man."
That's exactly how I was feeling. That's for sure. But it's nothing that I enjoy more than feeling the wind rushing in that aircraft after they open the doors and looking out into the dark night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, remind you, the thing about it was we were doing that as a unit, as a team of paratroopers, and that is what just was so overwhelming for me. I'm saying, man, I love being a part of this. It's you just don't experience that any place else in the world. And then with us being the only airborne air defense battalion in the free world, just made it even more remarkable.
It was neat to say that when I was there, right? I'm the only airborne air defense. But looking back on it, dude, that ain't no joke. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Yeah.
It was for real. I mean, there was no other active army in the world that had an airborne air defense battalion.
And we had the most equipment, the most technology. How many times did we try to get SHTU link up? How many times did we try to get Tactical Tuesdays or some crazy crap, and Motor Pool Mondays?
Yeah, I tell you, we go out there and we set up those 254s and we trying to link up with division. On those COMEX days, and it was just remarkable, that the comms guys, made something like that work.
Oh yeah.
And we had to do it because once we got on the ground somewhere, we had to put all that stuff into operation.
Oh yeah, that was a big deal. Look, if at my level as an Avenger guy or a Stinger guy or a Vulcan guy, but this was after a Vulcan. But if you were able to get SHTU link up and get a real live air picture, man, that was a big deal. That was cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
to be able to get that air picture was awesome.
Other than that, it was, hey, where are they at?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
We were, we did some groundbreaking stuff, for not only air defense artillery, but for the Army.
Amen. Yeah, talking about being gladiators and warriors and stuff, we had 2-man teams that would jump out of an airplane, all alone, unafraid, go off by themselves, on foot, with just the stuff they carried, and go sit on top of a hill with nobody else around them, all by themselves, and wait for a helicopter to fly over this thing and shoot it down. Come on. That's crazy.
Right.
And we were willing to do it, right? There was no reinforcements. If you think that you were going to call somebody and get help on the radio in a real world like where we were doing it, oh, come on, right?
Hey, but think about it. Until the follow-on forces showed up, you were the four element.
Amen. We were rocking. We got a saw, baby. We got a saw. We'll shoot them down.
You could draw the LD right in front of you. Get a stick and draw it right there in front of you.
Cross this line, baby.
That's for sure. That was outstanding.
Yeah. So we had. One of the things that was neat, okay, so I was a SHORAD Vulcan, then I turned into an Avenger Stinger guy, and then later I was a Patriot First Sergeant. The mentality of the Stinger team, the maturity that specialist team chief gains in the 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, and what we're doing jumping out of airplanes in the middle of the night, there's no way to translate that experience to almost any other MOS, any other thing, anywhere.
You can't.
You can't. So you look at somebody in a Patriot unit, and you can't equate that knowledge of a specialist that links up with an infantry battery or company commander, falls in with their formation, integrates with them, jumps in, reports to 2 different people, and gets an air picture. I mean, the complexity of a Stinger Team Chief's operation was a big deal as a specialist, as a PFC right. Sometimes.
And that takes me back to what we talked about up front is performance gaps. And with us coming out of division, and we know where, a specialist or a young sergeant, where they perform at as far as leadership and training is concerned, and not to knock a Patriot guy, but you sometimes didn't see that until you got to an E7 in the 16 Tango and the 16 Echo MOS.
Right.
What we saw routinely, at the E4 and sergeant level in air defense in SHORAD.
Right.
And I know I'm going to get some hate from, our Harmac guys, but,
Well, look, there's nothing against it. Yeah, there's nothing against our Patriot brethren, the Hawk, the HIMAD stuff. Okay, it's really simple. You tell a Patriot guy, hey, we're going to go off-road here, and they go, off-road? If you tell a division guy, hey, we're going to go on the road here, they go, on the road? It's that simple. It is that simple. And if you're able to understand that and realize that as a specialist or a sergeant, and you're a Stinger guy in the division, man, you learned how to survive and lead. Definitely.
That is for sure. You do.
Yeah, and it is.
You learn it very early in your development path. You early in your career that how important that leadership is and that training is. In preparing you for the mission and preparing you for survival. The one thing that I remember the military operation was going to be, and to make sure that your team or your squad or your platoon understood that you had them in turn convey that back to you based on their understanding, of that mission, of that task, those conditions, and those standards. And those little doggone SORAD guys, they were on point every damn time. They could recite that operations order better than the G3. They just knew it. They understood, and within the division, they made those young guys understand we aren't going to be successful unless you are. We could sit here and G3 plans and do all of this stuff, but if you guys don't put it into action on the ground, guess what? None of that stuff meant anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And our guys did it.
Oh yeah.
Our guys did it time in and time out. They did it. In Panama, they did it in Vietnam, they did it in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. I mean, every time we were called upon, we got it done, man. And I was just so proud to be part of all of it.
Tell me a little bit about the officers that you served with. Did you have officers that particularly helped develop you, or that you have a close bond with?
I do, and that goes back to those blessings, because I was in some precarious situations, during my time, because my soldiers were the most important element of what I was doing as a non-commissioned officer. They were number one, and anything I had to do to make sure that my part for their success was played out, that's what I did. And it takes me back to when I was a first sergeant, even though I can go back earlier, but we're talking about career defining points, in someone's career. And I was a battery first sergeant, and we had a damn good battery, great commander, great platoon leaders, and we were on Fort Hood, and again, Small Air Defense Battalion in the Great 3 Corps, and we had this one kid who went down to PLDC, and he was the senior honor grad. And the commandant of the NCO Academy at Fort Hood, one of the things that he stressed, regardless of who the soldier is and what their accomplishment was, when they walk across the stage, he didn't want no hooping and hollering, he didn't want any cheering. He just wanted them to get their diploma and walk across the stage. And I remember our soldiers, they came up to me and they said, "First Sergeant, when so-and-so gets his diploma, can we cheer?" Now, I know that it's going to put the command in a bad light, but they were so excited about this kid being selected as a distinguished honor grad. I said, go ahead and do your thing. So when our guy got his diploma, battery jumped up, they screamed and hollered. Before the applause went down, my brigade, Sergeant Major said, after this is over with, I want you to just meet me in my office. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get chewed out. I deserve to be chewed out because I went against post policy, and whatever I got to do, I'm willing to do it. But I'm going to, I'm going to stand by what my soldiers want. So I go to the brigade sergeant major's office. The battalion sergeant major is there with me, and he said, you broke protocol. I said, yes, sergeant major. He says, here's what you're going to do. He said, you're going to write a letter to the commandant apologizing. You'll take that letter to the commandant, and whatever the commandant deems necessary, I'm going to support. And I said, yes, Sergeant. And so he said, who was the platoon sergeant, of that unit that led this behavior?
Right.
And I said, Sergeant Major, with me. He said, no, I want to know who the platoon sergeant was. I said, Sergeant Major, with me. I said, they did that because I allowed them to do it. So I was the platoon sergeant. And so, he went up one side of me and down the other, but I wasn't going to give him that. I'm the one that authorized that.
Amen.
So I go and to the commandant's office. I gave him the letter. I apologized. And he said, First Sergeant, thank you. And I won't require anything further. And so I go back to the Sergeant Major, and the Sergeant Major says, he didn't want you to do anything else. And I said, no, Sergeant Major. He said, well, I do. He says, until further notice, every time that there is a PODC graduation, I want you in your Class A's, and you will go down to that auditorium, and you will serve as a whatever. And I thought that was really overstepping his boundaries. And I thought, why would a sergeant major want to put one of his first sergeants in a situation where he's handing out programs to folks coming to a PODC graduation? But that's what he wanted me to do, and that's what I did.
Wow.
But here's the thing about it, Marshall. 6 months after that, guess who's still doing that? Me. And so after one graduation, Sergeant Major tracked me down, and he says, First Sergeant, where are you coming from? And so I'm thinking, okay, he sees me in Class A's. He knows that the graduation just let out. And so I'm, now I'm a little bit ticked off that he's still doing this to me. I said, Sergeant Major, why do you think I'm in Class A? And so he rips me for being insubordinate. He goes back to the brigade commander, and he tells the brigade commander that I should be relieved for being insubordinate, and that he thought that I had got to a point that where he thought that I might, believe it or not, he said might attack him, which was, I'm at parade rest. I'm already embarrassed. I'm at parade rest. I got little PODC graduates walking by and say, damn, what the damn first sergeant doing at parade rest? But I'm doing it. And so he goes back and he tells the brigade commander this is not only what he recommends, but he says, and now recently I had just came out on the Sergeant's Major Academy list, and he says, I want him relieved and I want him taken off the Sergeant's Major Academy list.
Wow.
So the brigade commander calls me in, great guy, and he has me write a statement saying what happened and why I was doing that and all of that. And then he says, let me read through all of this, and I'll call you back in a couple of days and let you know, what's going on. So when the brigade commander decided he had enough information, he calls me back to his office. I report in. I walk in there. Brigade Command Sergeant Major sitting in one chair, Battalion Sergeant Major sitting in one chair, and he says, First Sergeant, first and foremost, I want to apologize to you. He says, I understand you made a mistake. He says, but I was totally unaware that my command had put you in such an embarrassing situation for the last 6 months. And he says, I'm letting you know right now, there will be no further action taken. He said, you go back and you continue to be the first sergeant of Bravo Battery until you PCS and go to the sergeant's major cap. And I mean, believe it or not, I was trembling. I was trembling in my boots. And it had to take a lot for this brigade commander to go against the wishes of his brigade command sergeant major. But this guy did the right thing, in my opinion, and he didn't destroy me when he had all the juice to do so. But he saw the good in the things that happened that day, and he saw the good in the things that little battery was doing for his brigade. And he says, I'm not gonna beat this guy down. I mean, for almost 3 years, his unit has been one of the best in this brigade, and I'm just not gonna do that. And I mean, this guy, you go back to what Underhill did for me, and here this, Bird Colonel, did the same for me, and trust me, those things, meant something to me. And then let me go forward a little bit now, right? I'm Battalion Sergeant Major in 3488. Colonel, it wasn't Colonel Woods, it was Colonel Younger was the battalion commander. Major Williams and Major Cox were XO and S3. Now, this was back in the time when our battalion was in a deep hum. I mean, everything we were doing was just on maximum hum. We were doing everything great. We were the toast of the division. Everything was looking good. And I look at myself, I've never been a non-commissioned officer that did a lot of iMessages about, I did this and I did that. It's always the team, it's always the battery, it's always the battalion. It's never about me. It's always about the soldiers. But for some reason, I will tell you there was 2 majors in Colonel Younger's office when I was son. And so when I walked in Colonel Younger's office and reported, I said, man, what kind of inquisition is this? Now I will call Colonel Williams' name because Colonel Williams and I are partners right now, but he was one of the 2 majors. And so what it come to be was those 2 majors thought that maybe I had too much to do with the success that the battalion was enjoying, and they didn't really care for the fact that after everything was said and done, the last 2 guys in the office was me and Colonel Young. And they thought it should have been them. And so Colonel Younger, when he brought me in, and I looked to my left, and I see Colonel Williams, I look to my left, I see Colonel Cox, and I'm saying, oh, this ain't good. Colonel Younger, he stood up, And he said, let me tell you guys something. That you guys are the best. You're the best operation officer. You're the best XO probably in this division. So I could not do what I do without you. He said, but I'm going to tell both of you something, and this is for your future edification. He said, when everything is said and done, I'm going to take what you say, I'm going to take what you say. He said, but I'm going to bounce it off of my command sergeant major. From that point on, I took from that and I helped develop non-commissioned officers, leaders, and then when I had the opportunity to have some type of dialogue with commissioned officers, I let them know. I said, if the commander doesn't support his NCO leadership, if he doesn't put his full support behind his command sergeant major, that organization probably will not succeed as well as they could. And I will always be grateful to Colonel Younger, for seeing that and doing that. I mean, for him to do that in front of two high-speed, low-drag majors the way he did, I mean, that took a lot of guts for that to take place. But I think he saw that the 80% of the battalion's success, our battalion's success, fell on the soldiers of the NCOs and the enlisted guys of that battalion, and he was not going to take that from us. And that just solidified that with me. And and I will tell anyone, anytime, any place, that our authority, our ability to do our job comes from what support that we get from that command.
Amen. Amen to that. That's for sure. That's for sure. What was it like, stepping away from being a battalion command sergeant major and moving up? Did you go straight to 108th?
I did. I left 3-4 in January of '96 and went straight to Fort Polk to 108th Brigade, and Colonel Russ DeWitt was the brigade commander. And again, it goes back to how fortunate that I was, because now I went from Colonel Younger, Colonel Woods, Colonel Cardini, Colonel Younger, Colonel Woods, to Russ DeWitt, who was all of those three wrapped up in the one. I mean, he was just a soldier's commander, and I had it so good because Colonel Oman was the brigade executive officer, and Colonel Williams was now the commander of 243. So how good did I have?
Amen, right?
How good did I have it? And so with their support, and we had a SHORAD battalion, and then we had the HIMAT battalion, but with the support of of the commander, the XO, and then the relationship that I had developed with Colonel Williams, I mean, we were tracking. We were absolutely tracking, and so the next 2.5 years were absolutely special for me. We left Polk, we went to Bliss, and then an added blessing for me was after Colonel DeWitt changed out, Colonel Larimore, who became the brigade commander. Colonel Larimore was my platoon leader back in 1978 in Korea. And he and I, when I was a first sergeant and he was battalion commander at Fort Stewart, we would talk on the phone all the time. And I said, wouldn't it be great if one day, you're a battalion commander and I'm your battalion sergeant major? And so that didn't happen, but it did happen, at brigade level.
Oh, that's great.
He and I got a chance to be command team at 108th Brigade. And what really made me feel good is not only with the non-commissioned officers, the first sergeants, the sergeants, battalion sergeants major, but with the officers. They said, man, we cannot believe how well this command team is working. They said, we cannot believe how good you and Colonel Larimore communicate and work through the issues within the brigade. I mean, we worked hard, but the command saw how well a relationship could be when the brigade commander and the brigade command sergeant major are on the same page.
Amen.
And so I was honored and really felt good by from the feedback that we received from not only the soldiers but the officers of the brigade as well.
Right. What's it like to go from, like, at one point you were the post command sergeant major for Fort Bliss, Texas. At one point you're the air defense command sergeant major. At one point you're the space and missile defense command sergeant major. What's it like to go from being a chaparral squad leader to being a leader of thousands of soldiers? What's that like?
Leadership is leadership. Whether you're a team chief, the accountability, the training, the guidance, the coaching, the mentoring is the same. It's just to a larger group. But, I mean, there is no special sauce that you put on leadership because you went from here to there. It's the same. You just have a larger, group to influence. And if you do it the right way, if they know you're in it for them, that's the key. They have to know that you are there for them. A lot of leaders make the mistake and they think the organization is there for them. But bullshit. You're there for the organization. Bottom line, you are there for those soldiers. And when they know that about you, when they trust that, when they know that this guy has our best interest at heart, then they're going to do the maximum best every day because they feel that you are doing your best for them. And I remember when Colonel Larimore and I were fishing up at Caballo Lake one 3-day weekend, and General Costello had opened it up, and he says, I'm going to interview these 6 or 7 guys to replace Sergeant Major Jeffrey Jordan as the regimental or the Sergeant Major of the branch. And so Colonel Larimore, received a phone call, and he says, someone said, I understand you have, Sergeant Major Adams are out there fishing. And he said, yeah. And he said, but he's got to come back tomorrow, and he's got to go interview with General Costello, for, being looked at to, become his CSM. And so we're sitting there on Larimore's pontoon boat, pulling in some stripers, pulling in some crappies, some bluegill. Said, bud, you got to head back in. He said, you're going to have to take my truck. take my truck in and do the interview and then, come back out. And so I went in, got dressed, went in, reported to General Costello. He and I sat down for an hour or so and, chopped it up about, my career and, what got me here and, what do I think about possibly working at the 2-star level. And, and I told him, I'm very honest with him. I said, sir, I never really gave it any thought. I just didn't think beyond, where I am right now. I'm honored to be there. But if you think that, I fit the criteria, I appreciate you at least, considering it. And so I go back out and finish up the fishing weekend with Colonel Larimore. A couple of days later, I find out that General Costello had selected me, for the job. But when I went up there, Will, and I will tell you this, and I have never shared it with anybody else. When I understood the duties and responsibilities for the guy who sat in that seat, I was so overwhelmed. I said to myself, right there sitting in that chair that Jeff Jordan had just left out of, and I said, if I make it 6 months, I'll be happy. I said, I just don't see, how I can do this. I mean, it was massive. And I just did not see me with the skill set to pull it off. But I'm being honest, with myself. But then after, I became familiar with the job and familiar with the things that General Costello wanted me to do. Then over time, my ability to grasp those duties and responsibilities, my ability to influence training, influence coaching, teaching, and mentoring. I became okay and think that I was able to, have a positive impact on what we were doing for the soldiers within, air defense artillery and helping develop, the great leaders as yourself to move from, from section to squad to running a battery and, running battalions. I think, we got it right. And, we turned out to, be a, pretty good branch, within the Army, scheme of things. And then when General Costello left to go to Space and Missile Defense Command, and then General Cavan came in to be the commandant, it really took off for me because General Cavan, man, if there was a general in the Army that worked harder than this guy, I never met him. This guy was soup to nuts, from ground to sky. He worked his behind off each and every day. And he wanted me to be a part of that. And this guy, let me tell you something, I can't remember working harder as a non-commissioned officer than the 2 years that I was General Cavan CSM, because this boy, he worked hard. He worked 7 days a week. There was not a Sunday. Listen to me. There was not a Sunday that I didn't have to meet him and his aide at the flagpole before Reveille, do Reveille, and then go on a run around the post. And then at some point in time, we was going to be in somebody's battalion brigade headquarters, looking at 1594s, checking soldiers' room, checking behind washers and dryers. But when the leadership of Fort Bliss realized this is what was important to this guy, then that elevated the overall proficiency within Fort Bliss, because they knew that he checked this, and so they put the attention toward those things that that they needed to do. And I will share this with my daughter Jasmine. When we were at Fort Bliss, I think she was like in elementary and middle school. Taking in everything that was going on, on Fort Bliss. And I remember when we got to Space and Missile Defense Command, that we were living on Fort Belvoir, and we were riding around, and she said, "Dad, let me tell you this." She says, "There is no way that General Cabot and General Costello will let Fort Bliss look like this place is." So, and out of the mouth of babes, and I'm saying I had no idea my daughter even cared about that kind of stuff. But we rode around the post, and we saw trash flying over here, and we saw things out of, in disarray over here. And I'm saying this kid noticed that stuff. She noticed that we put special emphasis on those things, on Fort Bliss, and she saw the difference, and she made that comment, and I was impressed. I was impressed by it.
There was a time when the Air Defense Branch owned Fort Bliss. Like that was it. Well, you got a picture of the Air Defense Branch when you stepped onto Fort Bliss, Texas, and that's all it was.
For sure. That's for sure.
And we were proud. Look, we were proud. And don't be talking bad about Fort Bliss. To this day, don't talk bad about Fort Bliss to me or El Paso. I'll get on you. I'll be like, hold on just a second.
That is for sure. That is for sure. That will always be the home to air defense for a lot of.
Oh yeah. Logan Heights and I mean the Weft method and just all kinds of stuff. The Stinger statue. I know that stuff's moved now, and Fort Bliss is a totally different kind of animal than it used to be, and I'm cool with that. It all goes. Look, they tore down Charlie 9349. Oh, I can't.
I know.
That's really sad. That's where I feel like I grew up and spent, 13 years of my life was around that barracks there at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That was a historic footprint on Fort Bragg for a bunch of.
Oh yeah. So tell me about like working up at Space and Missile Defense Command. I mean, that's like you got soldiers spread out all over the world. You got a unique mission that nobody else even really knows about. That's crazy, right?
But it was. But what I found out was the signal soldiers that ran all of those discus satellite sites, and 14 series guys that ran the JTAGs units around the world. I mean, they wanted that leadership. They wanted to be soldiers. They wanted to develop. They wanted to train. They wanted to be put in the position that where they can compete for positions of increased responsibility. They wanted that. And so, General Costello wanted the senior non-commissioned officers of SMDC to do that, for those soldiers. And one of the things that we were able to do, we were able to get the Department of the Army to give us the authority to present Sergeant Army Murphy. And so we didn't have to go outside the Force Com to get their approval. We had, DEA certification that we could do it, within, our MACOM. And that in and of itself boosted the morale, of the soldiers, of the non-commissioned officers at SMDC, because otherwise they would never, ever have gotten an opportunity to compete for Sergeant Audie Murphy, because they weren't in a command that would give them the opportunity to, to be tested and to train, for that, coveted award. And so when we were able to do that for them, that that really brought the morale, to its highest point. And then to be able to travel, to Japan, to Europe, and to meet with, the senior CSMs, from the Corps and from the other MACOM, and to be able to convey to them how great these soldiers who are living and working on their installations, how great they are, and how they want and need this recognition from them. I think that helped. I really think that helped identify, these guys tucked away on these little, satellite control sites, or tucked away behind the barbed wire at these JTAG sites, bring the senior leadership to understand who they were and incorporate them into the overall operation, of those communities. And I think we were able to do that. And I think we became, a better support system, to the overall United States Army by, making sure that the organizations that these guys are serving under knew that they were there, and knew the quality of soldiers they had within their separate organization.
You talked earlier about Sergeant McKinney, future Command Sergeant Major McKinney, how he mentored you and took care of you, and how he reached out when maybe he didn't even have to. And I bet you he's proud of you these days. I bet you that you're one of somebody that he would say, yeah, look at this guy, that I helped. Is there anybody like that in your life that you're particularly proud of, that that you kind of went out of your way to help at a time or two? You helped me for sure. You helped me make two great big decisions in my life and military career. But is there other folks that maybe you look at and remember a time and are particularly proud of them now?
The one thing that I am extremely proud of is that soldiers look to me for that support. They look to me for that additional guidance. And I remember Sergeant Laverty, Donna Laverty, was my EA at Fort Bliss. And she says, Sergeant Major, your calendar is full every evening because these first sergeants and these command sergeant majors want to come up here and they want to talk to you about stuff. And I didn't mind. Now, I will tell you, my family suffered from that because, I'm showing up at home 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and those hours that I would have been with my children, I'm with my soldiers. And I have been apologetic with my kids from that time, but I shared with them. I said, in order for me to do the things that I need to do, in whatever position that I was in, I said I had to be with those souls. I had to be there, and I don't have any regrets. The only regret that I have is that it took away, from that quality time, with my kids. But then when I look, at my oldest son right now, Jarvis, who is a high school principal in Atlanta, and his girls' basketball team, the last year's girls' basketball team, won the national high school championship for girls' high school athletics. And so I said, Jarvis, I guess you didn't do too bad. He said, and he tells me, and he said, Dad, he says, one thing that, I will tell you, he says, you used to tell us all the time, we couldn't stay out past 11:30. 11:30 was the bewitching hour, and we had to have our butts in. It didn't matter if we were freshmen, sophomore, juniors, or seniors. We were going to be in the house at 11:30. And he said, it bothered me for a long time because, my other classmates, they didn't have those restrictions. And so he said, the one thing that I wanted to do when I went off to college, he said, I was going to stay out past 11:30 to spite you. He said, but bottom line, he said, Dad, you were right. There was nothing good going on out in the streets after 11:30. And I remember when, when he was still a teacher, before he became the principal, he was coaching the football team. And he asked me to come down and observe one of his practices. And so I was sitting in the bleachers, and he stopped practice, and he called me down, and he talked to those kids on his football team like I used to talk to him. And he says, my father had a lot of things that I didn't agree with, as far as studying, as far as what time to be home. And he says, but I'm here reminding you of those things, but to also let you know where I got that from. And he said, Dad, I never got a chance to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you in front of my football team, how much I appreciate those things.
That's awesome. That's awesome, right?
And it knocked me off my feet. But I'm so proud of him then, proud of my kids, proud of where they are in life, and to know that they give me a little credit for getting them there. It makes me feel good as that my time as a father wasn't a total bust.
There are so many soldiers whose lives that you've touched, and so many wonderful memories that we all have with you. Remember, you spent a significant number of years on many of our boards in our wall. Your face was right there in front of us, many days and many hours, and you're a beloved person in my life and in a lot of our lives. We've been talking for 2.5 hours. It's wonderful. I love it. As we begin to close it out a little bit, I would love it if you'd call the old battalion to attention and sign out at some point, not now, but at some point. And I started out telling how important you were to me and my mentorship, and I sure do appreciate it, and so many others. And just person after person that I've had on camera here with me on these videos we've been doing have talked about the influence that that you had on them, and then you share your influence that Sergeant Major McKinney had on you, and it's obvious that it goes down the line, because there are folks that look to me and say, I mentored them. Well, you mentored me, and it just goes down that line. I thank you so much for showing us what right looked like, and taking your dad's lessons from Gray, Georgia, and bringing them down and showing us that love. Is there a story maybe that we haven't talked about that you might want to tell?
Oh my goodness, Army related.
I don't know.
I do. And this goes back to my time and I could tell these anecdotal stories for forever, but this one goes back to when I was getting ready to go to Jumpmaster School. And so we were living in a house over in Devonwood, and I can't remember who the G3 Air was. I think it might have been, I don't think it was Blankenbeckler, but he gave me, parachute and all the stuff that comes with getting ready for Jumpmaster School. And I go out, put it in my garage, and there I am, sitting in a chair doing my noun nomenclature, and I'm going through the RSOC and doing all of this stuff to get ready for Jumpmaster School. And she's sitting there and she's looking at what's going on, and I'm picking up this and I'm reciting in my head what it is. And so at some point in time, she grabs a book, and so she says, well, Dad, pick up this. And so it might have been the harness single point release. And she says, what is this? And it might have been not the Cape Wells, but the oh my goodness, that'd be a no-go at this station.
Canopy Release Assembly?
Yeah, Canopy Release Assembly. So this girl, she got into this big time. And so she helps me with this. I mean, my boys, they come in and they run, and they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. But here my daughter is, she's into it. And so when I go out for my test, and she said, Dad, good luck today. I know you're going to do it. And so I go out and I fail JMPI. Round turn 2 half hitches, I missed. So I come home, she's standing in the door, waiting for me to say, I got it. So I walk in the door. I said, Jasmine, I didn't make it. She says, Dad, she said, that's okay. She said, do you have to go back? I said, yeah, I got to go back. She says, and you'll get it. You'll get it this time. And so my little 4 or 5-year-old, she goes down to the kitchen, and I hear her telling her mom. She says, Mom, I spent a whole month in the garage helping Dad train to be a jump master. And he goes out there and he didn't make it. Oh my goodness, if that didn't bring some joy to my heart.
Disappointed.
Oh my goodness, that was just so, that was so nice. And for, when I did go back out and get a go, I think she was more happy about it than I. And then fast forward, she's 16 years old now, right? And I think you might have gotten a picture of when I was doing some sport parachuting out in New Mexico. And the guy, old 82nd guy, when he retired, he opened up a sports parachute club out in, I can't remember, it might be Sunland, New Mexico. And so I used to go out and took the training and jumped, and I used to take my EA and my driver out there, some weekends and jump. And so for my daughter's 16th birthday, I took her out for the training, and then actually, after she received the training for her 16th birthday present, she did 2 static line jumps out of the Cessna.
Oh, that's great. Yay. That's awesome.
And just to thank her for all what she did to help me get through Jump Master School.
Amen. Amen. It's great. Look, Jump Master School, you got to have a little help through there, man. It's tough. But she was so disappointed that, hey, Dad's slipping over here now.
Yeah, he's slipping.
So, hey, all right, I got to ask this question, right? I just got to ask this question. It's come up by popular demand. Where did the nickname the Bear come from? Is that something that you embrace? Do you like? Where did that come from?
I will tell you, I don't know the origin because, my time in the battalion, my time in Air Defense Artillery, the Bear was Nathan Thomas.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then Sean Lear, I think, started, he says, they soldiers hate to come up to battalion because they know they're going to get that bite and swipe from you. So I think that's attributed to, me being, affectionately named the Bear. I think Sean said, yeah, nobody wants to come up there and get that bite and swipe. Bite and swipe.
I like that. I never heard that. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Oh, wow. The bite and swipe of the Bear. Oh, you sure left a great legacy, Sergeant Major. You are an amazing man and American and human being and father. And thank you so much for your service to your country and your leadership and your teamwork and teammates. Thank you. Golly, it's just amazing. If somebody could say, hey, you get a chance to talk to anybody you want to talk to, you're on my list, right? And I just spent 2.5 hours with you, just a dear leader of mine. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Sergeant Major.
Well, I love what you're doing. I watch, every interview and the things that you're doing to enhance the remembrance of, our branch and the soldiers that serve within our branch. The one person that should be applauded for all that is you, because you're spending a lot of your personal time, a lot of your own personal resources that you could commit, to members of your family, but you're doing that for us. You're doing it for the branch. You're doing it for the Army. And I can't thank you enough, brother. For you to do what you're doing, just follows on with how great a soldier you were, how great a non-commissioned officer you were, and, the man you've become and the leader you can continue to be. We are all benefactors of that, and I can't do nothing but say thank you, brother.
Well, we appreciate your support. Joe and I, we've been doing this for about, look, your first interview was in 2017, I think, maybe late 2016.
Right.
And golly, Maggot's still with us. Maggot's doing great. I talked to him the other day at the Zoom room hangout. And and so, gosh, I just, I thank you so much for your support, Sergeant Major. Could you close us out? Can you call the old battalion to attention and sign us out?
All right, I hope I still have the pipes for it.
Oh, I bet you do. I bet you do. Oh, I'm so excited. It doesn't get no better than that. It doesn't get no better than hanging out with the bear. Command Sergeant Major Wilbur V. Adams. Oh, my gosh. Back up just a little bit. Back up just a little bit.
Okay.
There we go. We got it. We got it.
Battalion up here. In charge of the organization.
Oh, my God.
87 out.
Oh, my gosh. Yay. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Sergeant Major, that is just absolutely nuts. Crazy. So cool that we have been able to connect and hang out and be together at this time. I have enjoyed it so much. I have enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much, Sergeant Major, for hanging out. I love it. I love you. Blessings to you.
Brother, love you, man, and thank you, and continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you.